If you hit play, something in you has already started to change. And maybe you haven't even noticed, but the field felt it. Because this video isn't information, it's a code. And if it found you, it wasn't by chance. You've already tried to change your life. You've wished, you've visualized, you've even blamed yourself for not succeeding. But what if I told you that none of that matters? If your vibration is still stuck in an invisible pattern? That's what Thoth revealed millennia ago, and what science is only now beginning to understand. Reality doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to what you emit. And the biggest trap is that you might be vibrating scarcity, even when you're thinking positive. This video is going to show you how to actually change that. And once you find your true frequency, you won't need to chase anything anymore, because everything starts coming to you. But pay attention. This activation starts in the next few seconds. If you leave now, the field closes. Stay with me until the end, and you'll understand why this vibration was just waiting for you to remember who you are. The life you're living today, exactly the way it is, isn't being created by effort, luck, or chance. It's being shaped, silently, by the frequency you hold when no one's watching, by the invisible vibration you emit, even without realizing it. And it's this vibration that's organizing the meetings, the challenges, the opportunities, and even the blocks that show up in your path. Think of a musical instrument. It doesn't matter how much you wish to hear a different note. It will only play the sound it's tuned to. And you're the same. You can want a prosperous, light, meaningful life. But if the frequency you vibrate is fear, doubt, or frustration, what you'll experience is just the exact reflection of that vibration. Because the universe doesn't respond to your wishes, it responds to what you are being. And this being isn't what you say you are. It's not what you post on social media. It's what you hold vibrationally deep in your presence even when you try to hide. The real frequency you emit doesn't come from how you look, but from your internal coherence. And that's what determines what you resonate with. That's why two people can be in the same place, hearing the same thing, living the same conditions, and still one blooms, while the other sinks. What changes isn't the scenario. What changes is the internal vibration with which each one interacts with the world. And here's a powerful key. Vibration isn't something you have to achieve. It's something you're already emitting right now. With every thought you repeat, every emotion you feed, every sensation you let grow inside, all of that is sending out a signal. A field that tells the universe, this is what I'm choosing to experience. If you vibrate scarcity, life will give you lack. Not because it wants to punish you, but because it has to maintain the field's coherence. The entire universe is built on resonance. It can only return what matches your vibration. But when you start vibrating with clarity, presence, direction, doors begin to open on their own. Because this new vibration attracts situations, people, and opportunities that match what you are being, not what you're just wishing for. And this is where most people get confused. Many think manifesting is about repeating positive phrases or visualizing results. But true manifestation doesn't happen when you think something. It happens when you hold a frequency compatible with what you want to live. Reality isn't something separate from you. It's not outside. It's an extension of your vibrational field. It's like life is constantly scanning your internal state and rearranging the external to mirror that state. And that's why you can spend years trying to change your life, but everything stays the same. Because as long as your frequency is stuck in the old pattern, fear, doubt, resistance, the world around will keep responding the same way, no matter how hard you try. Because it's not about trying, it's about frequency. You don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you are. And that being is vibrational. It's the sum of what you feel, believe, focus on, and carry in the silence of your field. So if life feels repetitive, if the same patterns keep coming back, it's not the universe working against you. It's your vibration still stuck in a state that no longer represents you. And until you change that frequency, the cycle continues. But there is a way to start changing this field, and it doesn't depend on magic or external formulas. It only depends on one thing: your awareness of what you're holding right now, because change starts the exact moment you become aware of the frequency you're emitting. And if you're realizing this right now, it's because you're already ready to break that pattern. Now, what you need to understand is where this vibration you hold today comes from, because it didn't come out of nowhere. It was programmed, and that's exactly where the secret lies, one that almost no one notices. This vibration you hold today didn't happen by accident. It was programmed, shaped, repeated. Since you were born, your beliefs, fears, and perceptions have been fed by external voices: family, school, culture, religion, trauma. All of that has been teaching you, without words, what reality was and what was possible. But what no one told you is that, thousands of years ago, a being named Thoth had already left the codes to escape this vibrational prison. But most people never knew how to decode it, because what looked like poetry was a formula. What sounded like a metaphor was hidden science. As above, so below. The all is mind. Everything vibrates. These phrases weren't written to decorate esoteric books. They were recorded as clues, vibrational maps, formulas revealing how reality is structured, from the inside out, from top to bottom, in a mirrored, precise, unbreakable way. Modern science calls this the informational field, a system where everything communicates non-linearly, where what you feel now can influence something miles away, or even realities that haven't manifested yet. Hermeticism called this correspondence, the idea that there's an absolute connection between planes. The micro reflects the macro, and the invisible shapes the visible. But none of this matters if it stays just in the mind. It's easy to understand with the mind, to repeat the phrases, to put them in a pretty caption, to say you believe. But the real leap happens when you move beyond the concept and live it with your body, because vibration isn't a theory, it's a living language. It speaks through your body when it tightens for no reason, when you feel discomfort walking into certain places, when your heart races around certain people, when your intuition screams and you silence it. All of that is vibration trying to communicate with you, and every sensation you ignore is a piece of the code that stays dormant. Thoth didn't leave ready-made manuals. He left keys, fragments, truths hidden in symbols, in short phrases, in patterns repeated across civilizations. But these keys don't work in the logical mind. They only activate when you enter a vibrational state that's compatible with them. That's why so many people read, study, search, but still don't change anything in practice, because they're still trying to understand a vibrational code using the language of the intellect. But the code reveals itself when you live in coherence. When what you think lines up with what you feel, and what you feel lines up with what you do, that alignment creates a field. And that field starts to decode, through direct experience, what the masters were never able to explain in words. That's why Thoth didn't write everything down, because what really matters can only be accessed by frequency. And if you're not vibrating at that frequency, even if you read it 1,000 times, you won't understand. It's like a radio station. The signal is always being broadcast, but if you're not tuned in, all you'll hear is static. And that's exactly why most people live immersed in noise, because their minds are full, their bodies tense, their hearts closed. And in that state, the vibrational language of the universe, which is subtle and alive and silent, can't be perceived. But when you start to quiet the noise, to notice the signs, to trust the feelings you used to ignore, something starts to rise from within. You begin to see patterns, connections, little repetitions that seem like coincidence, but aren't. And then you realize it was never about memorizing teachings. It was about tuning into them. Because the truth isn't written in books. It's printed into the very fabric of reality. And it only reveals itself when your vibration aligns to the exact point where it can be understood. And when that happens, everything changes. Because you're no longer trying to access wisdom. You begin to live wisdom. To feel the answers before asking the questions. To realize that what you were seeking had always been trying to reach you, but your old frequency didn't let you hear it. Only now, something has already started to open. And this is where the inevitable question arises. If the external world is a reflection of your internal field, what exactly is being reflected around you? Because even when you start seeking alignment, there are still days when something seems to steal your energy. Moments when you wake up fine, at peace, and just by entering a space or talking to someone, everything collapses. Your body feels heavy, your mind shuts down, your motivation vanishes, and you can't even explain why. But the explanation is in the invisible. You don't live in isolation. Your energy field is constantly interacting with the world around you. Everything vibrates, and everything influences. People, places, sounds, words, glances, everything carries a vibrational signature, and if you're not aware, you end up absorbing that frequency as if it were yours. Without noticing, you start feeling what someone else feels. You start carrying weights that aren't yours. You start vibrating the energy of the space instead of holding your own. And this isn't a metaphor, it's subtle physics. Your vibrational field is like a sponge, and if it's open, unprotected, directionless, it absorbs the dominant field around it. You could be vibrating lightness, and just a few minutes next to someone full of anger, resentment, or fear, and that's it. Your field gets invaded. And the worst part? You don't even notice it changed. You just feel your body off. Your mood shifts, your energy drains. That's why so many people live in states of energy swings without knowing why. They think they're unstable, too sensitive, fragile. But that's not it. They were just never taught to protect, anchor, and emit their own frequency. And Thoth already knew this. The ancient initiates knew this secret. They knew the invisible rules the visible. And that's why they created high vibrational fields as shields. Not with walls, but with awareness. Not with fear, but with presence. Because they knew the outer field only invades when the inner field is too open, too scattered, too forgotten. And here's a detail that needs to be said clearly. Most of your daily decisions, emotions, and thoughts aren't originally yours. They are resonance, reaction, reflection of the environment you're in. And if you don't learn to tell what's yours from what's absorbed, you start living under a field that isn't yours. You lose your original vibration. And the most dangerous part, you start thinking that's who you are. That heaviness was always there. That tiredness is normal. That anxiety is part of your personality. But it's not. It's interference. And if you don't protect your vibration, the whole world will shape it for you. Ads will choose your desires. Social media will choose your attention. The nearby conversation will choose your inner state. And little by little, you'll stop being a broadcaster and become just a receiver. And that's when your story starts getting written by others. Every time you adapt to someone else's field out of fear of disappointing, need for approval, or simple lack of awareness, you hand over your vibrational pen to whoever's closest. And the result is predictable. A life that seems like yours, but never really was. A journey built on fields you just absorbed, never actually chose. That's why Thoth said, "He who masters his vibration masters his destiny. Because when you hold your own field, you become immune to invisible manipulation. You start radiating a frequency that doesn't bow, doesn't get contaminated, doesn't dim. But for that to happen, you need to learn to recognize the signs of energetic invasion. You need to know when the emotion you're feeling didn't start inside you, but was absorbed from outside. You need to regain the ability to tell what's yours and return what isn't. And that awareness is the beginning of a powerful shift, because once you start noticing how others influence your field, you inevitably begin to ask yourself, who then are you allowing to silently shape your vibration? Because more important than protecting yourself from outside influence is discovering what should actually be guiding your frequency. And this is where we reach a point that Thoth never revealed in words, but lived through every choice, every encoded teaching. Purpose. Purpose is not a life goal. It's not a career nor a long-term objective. Purpose is vibrational direction. It's the invisible force that aligns everything in you, thought, emotion, action, and turns your field into something no one can copy. Because when you vibrate with purpose, your energy is no longer random. It becomes coherent, focused, alive. That's why some people walk into a room and everything changes. They're not there to please nor to compete. They're simply aligned with something greater. And that alignment creates a field, a kind of subtle gravity that attracts what matches, repels what doesn't, and reorganizes everything around them without having to force anything. And here's the detail that almost no one notices. Most people live without vibrational purpose. They live on autopilot. They do what they have to do, follow what they learned, mimic what seems to work. But inside, they're disconnected from something essential. And that disconnection creates a fragmented field, a field that opens easily to external manipulation, emotional noise, impulses that aren't even theirs. Thoth knew this. He knew that the only way to truly protect the inner field was to anchor that field in purpose. Because when you're vibrating with direction, the noise of the world loses its power. Other people's opinions lose importance. Doubts dissolve. Because you know why you're here. And that magnetic clarity changes everything. You stop chasing. You start attracting. Because purpose acts like a code that resonates with situations, people, and decisions that serve your mission. What doesn't serve naturally falls away. What's aligned comes closer. And that selection isn't made by the mind. It's made by frequency. When you live without purpose, everything is exhausting. Everything feels heavy. You need effort to stay motivated, to maintain relationships, to keep going. But when purpose is active, even challenges have a different flavor, because there's an inner force supporting you, a certainty that doesn't need logical explanation. It's like your whole body is saying, "This is the way." That force is what reorganizes your vibration. It pulls you out of mental confusion, emotional swings, and anchors you in a state of presence that's almost unshakable. It doesn't mean you won't feel fear or doubt, but fear won't lead your frequency anymore. Doubt won't throw your path off course. And you know what's even more impressive? When you activate your purpose, you also activate a field of protection. Not a mystical, invisible, abstract protection, but a real vibrational shield. Because your frequency stops being vulnerable. It becomes clear, dense, focused. And that focus naturally repels anything that doesn't vibrate in tune. That's why some people stop attracting certain types of conflict when they find their mission. Why some cycles end. Why certain patterns disappear. Because the field has changed. And the universe can only reflect what you're emitting. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth or prove you're on the right path. When you're vibrating purpose, your field speaks for you. It opens doors, it closes others, and it does this with an intelligence beyond logic. Because Vibration doesn't negotiate with the ego. It only responds to what's true. And the more you live in that alignment, the more you start to see something that few admit. The world doesn't reward effort. It rewards coherence. And coherence is only born when you stop trying to fit in and start living what you came here to express. But if this is so powerful, why can't so many people sustain this state? Even with purpose activated, many people still can't hold that field for long. They feel, for a moment, they're on the right path. But soon after, everything feels misaligned. The focus fades. The strength weakens. The world feels heavy again. This happens because, even though they understood the purpose mentally, they haven't anchored that vibration in the true center of coherence, the heart. For centuries, we've been conditioned to believe that the mind is the command center, that it makes the decisions, guides the path, decides what's right or wrong. But modern science has started to uncover what the ancients already knew, and what Thoth applied with precision. The heart is the true vibrational center of the human being. Studies from the HeartMath Institute show that the electromagnetic field emitted by the heart is over 60 times stronger than the brain's. And we're not talking spiritual metaphors, but real measurements taken with scientific instruments. The heart emits a frequency that directly affects not only your physical body but also the environment around you. But this field only expands when you enter a very specific state: coherence. Coherence is when your thoughts, emotions, and actions are all vibrating in the same direction. When you think one thing, feel the same, and act in alignment, your field becomes unified. It stops oscillating. It stops fighting itself. And when that happens, your presence becomes magnetic, unmistakable, because the universe doesn't respond to what you want, but to the stability of your field. But many try to access this state by feeling love. Yet love in this context isn't the romantic feeling we were taught. It's not affection directed at something external. It's an inner state of integration, of deep presence, of vibrational openness that doesn't demand conditions. It's when you feel the world inside yourself, without conflict, without resistance, without needing to defend. And this state can be trained. You start, for example, by breathing consciously, focusing on the center of your chest. Then, activate a real feeling of gratitude or compassion. It doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be real. The body responds, the field aligns, heart rhythm changes, brain frequency slows, and suddenly you enter coherence, a silent point where everything starts to fit. In this state, your vibration isn't scattered anymore. It becomes a direct transmission. You don't have to say much. You don't need to convince anyone. Your very presence carries the message, and this vibration, when anchored in the heart, is felt by others, even if unconsciously. Thoth understood this deeply. That's why his teachings were never just rational. They were transmitted through presence, through field, through vibration. It was the heart that activated knowledge, not the intellect. And here's a point few people realize. You can study 1,000 books, memorize every spiritual law, do daily practices. But if your heart is closed, it all becomes noise, because the knowledge doesn't pass into the field, it stays trapped in the mind. And the mind, alone, doesn't emit a coherent field. The mind can organize. But it's the heart that vibrates. And when you vibrate in coherence, reality around you begins to reorganize. Situations that were blocked start to move. Time seems to cooperate. The right words come at the right time. Encounters shift frequency, because now you're transmitting from the real center. But this state doesn't happen by chance. It has to be cultivated. It must be sustained even when chaos appears, even when the outside world tries to pull you back. And here's where a subtle key comes in. You can't depend on what's outside to maintain your coherence. It must come from within. Be bigger than the stimuli, bigger than the noise. But to live in this state steadily, you'll need to learn to access the frequency that doesn't break, the one that cuts through layers, blocks, even time. And that's where something even deeper begins to reveal itself. And it's right there, in that point of vibrational stability, that something starts to open. Because behind coherence, behind purpose, behind mind and heart in alignment, there's a frequency that not only connects but transforms. And that frequency is called love, but not the love you were taught. It's not the love that expects something back. Not the love that comes from need or dependence. Not the love that requires promises or confirmation. The love that heals isn't the one that desires. It's the one that radiates. This vibration doesn't need an object. It doesn't arise because someone reciprocates. It doesn't depend on circumstances. This love is presence in its purest state. A field that expands from your center when you stop protecting, stop begging, stop bargaining with your own soul. It's love that simply exists. And by existing, it reorganizes. When this frequency activates, cells begin to respond. The body lets go. Tensions dissolve. Breathing becomes smoother. Skin warms. But it doesn't stop there. Relationships that once felt difficult transform. People vibrating at a different frequency drift away without conflict. Important decisions arise with ease, without struggle. You start to see that your mere presence begins to heal, not because you did anything, but because your field became the antidote. The words you speak carry more weight. The silences you hold become medicine. The way you look, breathe, walk, starts transmitting a code only understood by those who are ready. It's like you begin to touch subtle layers of people, places, and reality, without needing to explain anything. This love is vibrational, and because of that, it heals dimensions. It's not an exaggeration to say this frequency can cross time and space, because it's not mental nor emotional, it's spiritual. And it acts exactly where the pain was formed, at the point where separation was created, where rejection began, where fragmentation settled. But here's the paradox. Everyone wants to feel this love, but almost no one knows how to access it. Because we were taught that love is earned, deserved, found in others, we were programmed to seek outside what can only be activated inside. And that's exactly why most people get frustrated, because they're trying to force a frequency that only reveals itself in surrender. Vibrational love doesn't come from effort, it comes from release, from embracing, from the deep recognition that you are whole, even while feeling like you're still healing. You don't need to be perfect to love at this frequency. In fact, it's exactly when you accept your imperfections without judgment that this energy begins to rise, because the love that heals is the love that embraces, without needing to fix. That's why this love transforms. It doesn't invade. It doesn't demand. It simply vibrates. And anyone in contact with it feels it, even without understanding, even without knowing why. They feel relief, a calling, a memory, as if, for a moment, something deep inside whispered, "This is what I've always needed." But to live this, you'll need to access a state that almost no one consciously practices. And it's exactly this state that Thoth kept silent, never written down. This practice can't be explained with words. It can only be understood through experience. And if you're not vibrating at the right level, even if you hear it, you won't listen. Even if you read it, you won't understand. Because what activates this practice isn't logic, it's intention. The practice that awakens your real frequency is called conscious intention. It's simple, but it requires vigilance, clarity, total presence. Conscious intention is not disguised desire. It's not wanting something hard, nor visualizing a goal hoping the universe bends to your will. It's also not forced positive thinking or the rush of someone chasing quick results. It's the opposite. It's the inner stillness that becomes vibrational direction. It's the moment you choose what you'll hold, with body, emotion, and action. When you think one thing, feel another, and act disconnected, the field becomes noisy. The universe doesn't recognize what you say you want. It recognizes what you're being in coherence. Conscious intention is when you choose which frequency to hold, even when the outside world tries to pull you another way. And that choice happens all the time. When you wake up and decide what energy you'll enter the day with. When you talk to someone and notice whether your words come from the soul or from fear. When you make a decision and sense whether it's guided by clarity or reactivity. Conscious intention is a silent stance that shapes your field before you even say a word. It's the invisible starting point that determines whether your vibration will be scattered or magnetic. And the most interesting thing is, you don't need anything external to access it. No temple, no mantra, no perfect setting, just awareness in the now. And the courage to hold what you chose to vibrate. Because the world will test your vibration constantly. It'll provoke you, distract you, offer shortcuts that seem easier, and if you're not anchored in your intention, you'll give in. You'll go back to autopilot. You'll react instead of create. But when you hold your intention even under pressure, something begins to shift in the field, as if the universe says, now you're ready. Now I can rearrange everything around you to reflect what you truly vibrate. That's the point where the outside begins to change. People come closer effortlessly, situations flow, obstacles dissolve, because the vibration you emit with clear intention doesn't ask, it commands. Not in a controlling way, but through natural alignment. You're no longer trying to make things happen. You're vibrating in a way that makes them recognize your field and fall into the right frequency. But here's the truth few accept. Keeping this practice alive takes constant attention. It's not something you do once in a while. It's a state you enter, a level of consciousness you assume. And once you do, you can't go back without feeling your field collapse. That's why this practice is alive. It doesn't have a rigid form. It adapts to the moment. Because conscious intention is sensitive. It listens. It vibrationally responds to what's present, not to what the mind wants to control. And if you really want to live as a conscious transmitter of realities, this is the practice you must cultivate as a way of life, not as a technique. And then comes the question that changes everything. How do you turn this subtle practice into something real, tangible, accessible in your day-to-day life, in a simple but powerful way? Because understanding conscious intention isn't enough. It must be practiced, integrated into everyday life, turned into living action. Otherwise, it just becomes another beautiful idea in the mind. And that's where the real commitment begins, choosing every new day to live as frequency. How do you do this in practice? How do you hold this state in the middle of chaos, distractions, and routine? This is where the step-by-step reveals itself, not as a magic formula, but as a ritual of reconnection with what's essential. First, choose 3 thoughts that lift your vibration. Not just any thoughts, but those that, just by remembering them, your body changes, your breath deepens, your heart opens. It could be gratitude for something simple, a warm memory, or a vision of who you want to become. These thoughts are like notes in an inner song. And when you choose them first thing in the morning, you set the vibrational melody for your day. Then, breathe in coherence, not as a complicated technique, but with presence. Inhale to the count of 5. Exhale also to the count of 5. Do this for a few minutes. no rush. This synchronizes your nervous system, aligns the heart, and calms the mind. This simple act already reorganizes your field, because breath is the most direct bridge between the invisible and the physical. Every conscious breath is an anchor pulling you back to the now. Next, only speak what sustains your field, because words are coded vibrations. Every sentence you speak is shaping your subtle field. Avoid repeating stories of pain, automatic complaints, or phrases that reinforce limitation. Replace them with words that open paths. Speak with presence, with truth, with intention. Language is a spell, and every spell starts with sound. After that, seek contact with the living. That means stepping out of the artificial bubble and reconnecting with nature. It could be putting your feet on the ground, sitting under the sky, touching a plant, or simply breathing the wind for a moment with full attention. Nature doesn't need effort to vibrate at a high frequency, and when you come close to it, your vibration begins to remember what it was like before everything disconnected. Now, recall your purpose with a sacred phrase. A phrase that reminds you every day why you're here. It doesn't need to be long or mystical, but it needs to be real. It has to vibrate in your chest, something that brings you back to your center when everything seems to be spinning out of control because the world will try to pull you away. And this phrase will be your center of gravity. And finally, do one act of love for yourself every day. Not something automatic, but a conscious gesture, a slow bath, a real pause, a choice that clearly says, "Today, I honor myself." This gesture is like watering your vibration with presence. It's like telling the universe, "I take care of myself because I know who I am." If you apply these steps not as a duty, but as a living practice, you'll start to notice something subtle but powerful. Your frequency changes, and with it, everything around starts to reorganize. Conversations become lighter, decisions flow with more clarity, your body responds with more energy, and reality begins to reflect this new field. You don't need to understand how the universe will do it. You just need to do your part, hold the field. But what if even doing all this, there are still days when the world feels too heavy, when it seems like your vibration dropped for no reason? There's an explanation for that, and it changes everything. Even when you follow each step with awareness, there can still be days when everything feels foggy, when your energy fades, when your excitement disappears, and you even think your vibration dropped. But what many don't realize is that in those moments, the greatest danger isn't the drop itself, it's what comes disguised as peace. There's a vibrational state that seems serene, calm, even elevated, but it's actually a subtle form of numbness. It's when you start to accept everything in the name of supposed spiritual neutrality, but without real presence, without active awareness. And what comes from that isn't balance, it's vibrational apathy. This is the most dangerous trap for anyone on the path of expansion, because it doesn't look like fear or anger or pain. It looks like whatever, like a silence that doesn't heal. It just freezes, like a calm that doesn't vibrate. It just settles. It's when you tell yourself you're at peace, but you've actually stopped feeling. It's when you confuse surrender with disconnection, when you think you're going with the flow of life, but you're really just checking out of it. This state is tricky because it doesn't hurt. It numbs. And this isn't evolution, it's energetic sedation. You convince yourself you don't need to do anything else, that you're already vibrating high enough, that you've let go of everything, but in reality you just turned off your sensors. You gave up movement, you stopped listening, and you started calling that spiritual peace. But peace without presence isn't peace, it's escape. Thoth warned about this subtly. He said, "Silence without purpose becomes a prison, because real silence is vibrant. It's alive, it's filled with direction, even in stillness. But that other kind of silence, the one that comes from giving up on feeling, from choosing not to stir the waters, from staying quiet in front of what still needs to be faced. That silence kills your frequency little by little. This is where many fall, especially those who've walked the path a long time, those who've studied, meditated, healed traumas, done the work, because there comes a point when the pain stops and the field seems stable. But it's a stability that doesn't pulse, a neutrality that doesn't create, a subtle comfort zone disguised as spiritual maturity. But if you look closely, you'll notice enthusiasm dies there. Inspiration fades. Time passes and nothing moves. The soul no longer glows. The eyes lose their spark, and life stops surprising you. This happens because the vibration stopped evolving, it stopped expanding, and without realizing it, you entered a loop of non-reaction that feels like balance, but is just fear disguised as calm. Fear of feeling too much, of being exposed, of making mistakes, of being pierced by your own light's intensity. But light only shines where there's space for movement, and where there's no vibrational expansion, there's energetic stagnation. And all stagnation, sooner or later, becomes disconnection. That's why the spiritual path isn't one of suppression, it's a path of awareness. You're not here to erase your impulses, but to understand the frequency behind each one. You're not here to become neutral, you're here to become true, and truth vibrates. Truth pulses, truth moves. So if you feel like you're in a place that's too lukewarm, where nothing bothers you, but nothing excites you either, it's time to question. Are you really at peace, or are you just checked out? And if you had the courage to ask yourself whether you're truly at peace, or just numbed, then you've already taken a giant step. Because only those who start to wake from vibrational numbness can touch the rawest, most liberating truth of all. You're not a body that vibrates. You are vibration incarnate. You're not here trying to improve your frequency like tuning a radio. The truth is, your existence is already pure frequency manifested as form. Your matter, your body, your thoughts, your emotions, all of it is just a temporary reflection of what you're vibrating in essence. The form you see in the mirror is the visible trace of an invisible vibration pulsing within you all the time. And when that vibration changes, everything changes. Your body starts responding, your health reorganizes, your choices become clearer. The words from your mouth carry a new tone. Even how time flows around you seems to shift. That's why so often you try to change your life by changing the form. Your body, your city, your job, your habits. But none of that creates real transformation if the base vibration stays the same. Because form follows the field. Matter obeys frequency. And this isn't theory. This is applied spiritual mechanics. Your true identity isn't the name you were given, or the traumas you've lived, or the role you play in the world. Your identity is vibrational. It comes before form. It doesn't change with age, status, or gender. It pulses uniquely, like an invisible signature that's been with you since before birth. And the most curious thing is, you've felt this before. In rare moments, maybe looking at the sky, hearing a song, or sitting in deep silence, you felt something greater inside you, something you can't explain. That has no name. That can only be felt. That's your original frequency trying to rise. But it can't fully manifest while you keep defining yourself by everything you were conditioned to be, while you keep believing you are only what happened to you or what others expect of you. Every time you forget your vibration incarnate, you get stuck in the shell, in the form, in the image, and that's when life starts losing flow, because you start trying to control everything with your mind. forcing decisions, adjusting behavior, suppressing what you feel. And that takes so much effort. There's no room left for the natural flow of life to emerge. But when you remember your vibrational nature, something shifts instantly. You stop trying and start tuning in. You stop reacting and start responding. You leave control behind and enter creation. The people around you feel it, whether they understand it or not. Your field starts transmitting a message that rearranges everything around it. Relationships get lighter or end without drama. Time stretches. The body aligns with your inner truth, because now you're no longer trying to become, you're simply allowing yourself to be. And that's when everything returns to the center, because the center never left you. You just forgot it for a while. You believed you needed to become something, to get somewhere. But what you needed was to remember. You already were. You always have been. But then, if you are pure vibration incarnate, why do you still feel blocks that hold you back? The answer is in the next fold of the field, and it can change everything. And when you start remembering that your vibration before form, the next revelation comes naturally. Because if you're a living frequency in the flesh, then there's a point inside you where that vibration anchors, distributes, and manifests. A point that's not physical, but pulses like a silent bridge between everything you are. This is what Thoth called the inner link. This link isn't a specific chakra. It's not a gland. It's not an isolated body part. It's a vibrational intersection that connects all your dimensions in one flow. It's the point where heaven touches earth within you, where the invisible organizes with the visible, where spirit meets matter with no separation. The inner link is activated when you enter a state of real coherence. Not the surface coherence of someone trying to look centered, but the living coherence of someone who thinks, feels, and acts in harmony with their truth. When you live like that, this point awakens. And when it awakens, you feel it. It's not a passing emotion. It's not a spiritual high. It's a serene certainty. A presence that doesn't shake with mental waves. A vibrational solidity that doesn't depend on any outside condition. You feel like nothing's missing, and at the same time, everything is yet to come. It's a fullness that doesn't need an explanation. You just know you're whole, that you're where you need to be, and that everything that comes will come in resonance with that center. Thoth understood this point as a nucleus of living wisdom, a center of cosmic direction inside the being, and that's why he said, the real temple isn't outside. It's in this link. It's through it that the all expresses itself clearly within you. It's when this point vibrates that you become a channel. Not channel as in mystically channeling something from outside, but channel as in pure expression of the all through your individual existence. The inner link is where you stop seeking connection with the divine and start realizing you were already its extension all along. When this point activates, your decisions change in nature. You stop choosing out of fear or doubt and start acting from listening to the field. You notice synchronicities more clearly. You feel time folding in your favor. You stop trying to control the flow and start riding with it. And the most fascinating part, this link doesn't need effort to stay active. It doesn't demand rigid discipline. It only demands truth, because it only vibrates in alignment with what's real. If you betray yourself, it goes silent. If you disconnect from yourself, it shrinks. But if you live in presence, it lights up. And everything starts moving from there. You feel your energy flowing without blockage. Your body responds more lightly. Your gaze shifts. Your voice carries another vibration, not because you trained, but because you return to your origin point. The inner link is your center of reconnection with the source. You don't build it, you remember it, and when you live from that point, nothing feels heavy anymore. because there's no more separation between you and what you manifest. You become the field, you become the portal, you become the very channel through which the universe reveals itself. But then comes a new key. If you're already a channel, how do you trust the flow of life when everything around you feels uncertain? And that's when the subtlest and most challenging invitation appears: trust, not as an idea, but as a living frequency. Because when the inner link awakens, what once felt like control starts to feel like noise, and what once felt like letting go reveals itself as true alignment. Surrender is not giving up, it's opening up. It's when you release the illusion of being in control and recognize that real power is in tuning into the flow, because every bit of excess effort has one origin: separation. The unconscious feeling that you need to make it work. But when you're in your vibrational center, the effort dissolves. Because the universe responds to coherence, not tension. Control tries to push the river. Surrender dives into it. That's why Thoth never taught techniques to master reality, because true mastery doesn't come from force. It comes from intelligent surrender, from sensing which frequency is available in the moment and allowing it to move through you without resistance. That's vibrational trust. This trust doesn't rely on external guarantees. It's born from the vibrational certainty that life isn't against you. It's working with you, even when it feels like chaos. To trust vibrationally is to understand that every event is a note in a symphony your mind can't hear in full yet, and still, you choose to dance with it. When you enter this state, your energy softens, but it doesn't weaken, it refines. Your breath shifts, your gaze changes. You stop reacting compulsively and start responding with presence, because you're no longer trying to control the next step. You're listening to the step the field already took, and that's when your vibration rises, not through effort, but through resonance. Vibrational surrender opens channels that control had blocked. You start seeing opportunities that were invisible. Paths that didn't exist appear because you stopped trying to force them. People come into your life effortlessly. Situations line up in synchronicity. The field reorganizes around your trust. But pay attention. This surrender isn't passivity, it's active alignment. You still take action, but from another source. Your action no longer comes from fear of loss, but from the wisdom that everything meant for you by frequency is already on its way. You don't chase. You position yourself to receive. And when you live like this, time behaves differently. Things that used to take months resolve in days. What once seemed impossible becomes simple. Because now you're in the right current. Vibrational trust isn't positive thinking. It's a state, a field, an atmosphere you emit, and everything that resonates with that field starts to draw near. Everything that doesn't naturally fades away. No trauma, no drama, just flow. And when you hold this frequency, you don't just feel peace, you become the bridge to it. But to hold that, there's just one final activation left. And then, when that last key clicks into place, everything changes. Not because the world around you suddenly transformed, but because the vibration you're holding now emits a new signature. A signature so authentic that the entire universe starts to respond. Not with fabricated miracles, but with coherent reality. You realize you don't need to ask anymore. Or chase, because now, for the first time, you're vibrating from the source, and what you used to call manifestation stops being a goal and becomes a reflection of who you are, not of what you want. That's the shift. You no longer aim to vibrate high to get something. You vibrate as an expression of your state of being. There's no effort in sustaining that, because there's no persona trying to look awake. There's presence, there's truth, there's a field that self-regulates from your deepest axis, and this is where everything lines up. Situations begin to find you, not because you forced them, but because you became compatible with them. People who were vibrating out of sync move away without drama. New connections appear with ease. Time shifts. Synchronicities multiply. Because now, you're vibrating what's eternal. You stop seeking outside what could only be activated within. The absence of searching is the sign that the frequency has been found. There's no more agitation, no more anxiety disguised as spiritual focus. There's clean presence, pure vibration, luminous identity, and it's at this point that true freedom begins, because you no longer need to convince yourself, no longer need to prove anything. You don't even need to remember your practice. It became you. It lives through you, and that changes everything. You become a vibrational anchor, a point of resonance that transforms any space you walk into, not through words, but through frequency. And that frequency carries a silent sound, an invisible pulse, a primordial vibration that's echoed since before time. It's the sound of being. You're not here by chance. You were brought to this exact point, not by blind fate, but by vibrational coherence. Everything you've lived up to now has been aligning you with this original frequency. Now that you've found it, something quiets. Your chest expands, your eyes see with a new clarity, and what once seemed complicated becomes simple. You are no longer the question. You've become the vibrational answer. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you has already started to vibrate differently. Drop a comment saying, "I'm already vibrating in my center." This not only anchors your frequency, but activates the field of others walking this journey with you. And if you want to directly support the channel and help this message reach more people, it's simple. There's a pinned link in the first comment where you can contribute consciously. Or, if you prefer, use the "Thanks a lot" button here on YouTube. Your vibration makes all the difference. And before you go, don't close the video yet. A special piece of content has been selected on screen exactly for your next step. Click now to continue this vibrational activation. I'll meet you there.